This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. Tens of thousands of Iowans will head to the caucuses tonight. It is the first state to weigh in on the 2020 presidential race, and we should have most of the results by 11 p.m. Eastern tonight. The Democratic race is extremely close, with former Vice President Joe Biden and socialist candidate Bernie Sanders considered to be the frontrunners. CBN's Abigail Robertson spent the weekend in the Hawkeye State talking to caucus goers.
Democrats took over the Hawkeye State this weekend, each hosting multiple events and covering hundreds of miles, desperate to win over those final votes ahead of tonight's caucus.
It's going to take some big structural change. You ready for that?
Iowans crammed into events by the thousands to hear directly from candidates one last time ahead of Monday's vote.
Refuse to accept the notion we're going to be in total chaos and war with the other side, because we're done if that's true.
Joe Biden touted his ability to unite while also taking jabs at President Trump.
Speaking of losers, my God.
Many voters told CBN News they're still undecided.
I would probably say my top three would be Pete, Biden, and Warren.
And the night could end with the top four seeing only slight differences in their number of delegates.
In our polling, there's about 5 points that separates the top from the second, and then they're all sort of bunched together. And one of the things we know about the Iowa caucuses is that attitudes of Iowans are pretty fluid. They change pretty fast in those last couple days.
While Senator Bernie Sanders appears to be leading in the state he narrowly lost 4 years ago, pollster David Peterson speculates his 2020 surge may have peaked.
The supporters of those other four top candidates are much more likely to settle amongst each other than they are to switch over to Sanders.
Some moderate Democrats saying they're not quite ready to feel the burn.
I don't believe the Midwest will go for this. You know, Bernie's idea of immediate health care for everybody, when 50% of the country is pretty happy with what they have right now. So I can't imagine that winning.
Or vote Biden back in office.
If it's Biden or Bernie, they're too old. I can't vote for them. I'm sorry.
While others feel unity is the priority.
Yes, I will be behind whoever the candidate will be.
I think it's important that the Democratic Party stay united.
Tonight, the country and party leadership will get the first glimpse of whether voters prefer a more moderate candidate like Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, or a more progressive choice like Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Reporting from Iowa, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
And we're joined now by Shane Vanderhart, editor-in-chief of the Iowa-based Caffeinated Thoughts, a conservative Christian website. Shane, thank you for joining us. Big day, finally here. We spoke a month ago to you, and you thought at that point that Pete Buttigieg was going to take the Democratic caucuses in Iowa. What is your thinking now?
Well, thanks for having me, Heather. And right now, it looks like Bernie Sanders is in a good position to win the caucus because the establishment lane of the Democratic caucus seems to be pretty competitive, which only helps him. I think if for some reason Elizabeth Warren is more competitive and she outperforms her polling numbers, that could end up seeing him go down. But I think he's locked in either first or second place.
All right. And a recent Pew survey found that almost 8 in 10 Iowans say that religion is somewhat or very important to them. When it comes to the Democratic candidates, how have you seen them or not seen them reach out to people of faith in Iowa?
Right. I think Buttigieg is really the only candidate that's attempting to do that, but not necessarily in a way that's going to sway at least evangelicals here in Iowa, just because it seems like he ignores some key passages when he's talking about the Bible. Yeah, I haven't really seen much outreach to Iowa's evangelicals by any of the Democratic candidates beyond, say, Buttigieg.
Really interesting that the rest of them are not making that effort, or at least in Iowa. I want to ask you, too, the Des Moines Register CNN poll decided not to release its latest poll Saturday night over concerns there was at least one mistake in administering it. Does that potentially hurt some of the candidates with momentum? How fluid do you see the race at this point?
It's pretty fluid. I mean, most polling shows about up to anywhere from 45 to 48% of Iowans can still be persuaded to back another candidate. Some, I think it was the Emerson poll that actually said about half said that they could even change their mind tonight. So it's very fluid. No candidate should think they have a lock on this because the thing with the Iowa caucus, if your candidate doesn't meet a 15% threshold in the precinct caucus, then you get the opportunity to choose somebody else. And depending on who's not viable, that could either boost or help to put somebody in decline later that tonight. So it's all fluid. Anybody who says they absolutely know who's going to win tonight, they don't know what they're talking about because there's just too many intangibles that isn't reflected in the polling.
All right, and I want to ask you, the president, as you know, will have some 80 surrogates in Iowa tonight. You attended his rally in Des Moines last week. How do you see his strategy in Iowa playing out?
Well, he came out here, and the surrogates are out here to just help boost attendance at tonight's GOP caucuses, because historically, whenever there's an incumbent president running in either party, turnout's always low. So I think they're trying to boost that. I don't think he has anything to worry about as far as winning tonight's caucus. That's pretty much a foregone conclusion. But they really would hate to see a low turnout because just the metrics and the optics doesn't look good for that. So I think that's pretty much their strategy, just to try to turn out as many Republicans as possible.
All right. And ultimately, I know you've said you think the president will take Iowa in November. Are you still holding to that?
Yeah, I still believe that. Right now, polling indicates that as well. So I think he's in strong position in the Hawkeye State, but obviously he shouldn't take it for granted. He needs to come out and campaign hard for the general election.
All right, Shane Vanderhart with Caffeinated Thoughts. Thanks for your time. I hope you have a great time tonight.
Yeah, definitely. You're welcome.
Thanks. Well, the Senate reconvened today for closing arguments in President Trump's impeachment trial. House managers and the president's defense team had 2 hours to make final arguments. The Senate is expected to acquit the president when it votes on Wednesday afternoon, but House Manager Jason Crow says Democrats proved their case.
What you decide on these articles will have lasting implications for the future of the presidency, not only for this president, but for all future presidents. Whether or not the office of the presidency of the United States of America is above the law, that is the question.
As impeachment enters the end game, the president will give his State of the Union address tomorrow evening. It's only the second time in our nation's history that a president has delivered the address while on trial in the Senate, and we will have full coverage of the address right here on the CBN News Channel beginning at 8:30 p.m. Tuesday night. Well, turning overseas, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Uzbekistan today. In a news conference this morning, he demanded that the Taliban reduce violence if it wants a deal with the U.S. that would lead to Afghanistan peace talks and a withdrawal of American troops from the country.
We got close once before to having an agreement, a piece of paper that we mutually executed, and the Taliban were unable to demonstrate either their will or their capacity, or both, to deliver on a reduction in violence. And so what we are demanding now is demonstrable evidence of their will and capacity to reduce violence, to take down the threats.
His comments come just 2 days after a U.S. peace envoy arrived in Kabul and told Afghanistan's president there has been, quote, no notable progress in talks with the Taliban. Well, China has announced sweeping new measures to contain the coronavirus. They include this hastily constructed 1,000-bed hospital to quarantine patients in the city of Wuhan. It was built in just 10 days. So far, at least 361 people have died, and more than 2,800 new cases of the deadly virus have been reported in the past 24 hours. Here in the United States, a public health emergency is in place. Authorities are keeping foreign travelers who have visited China out of the country. The new measures come as Massachusetts health officials report their first case of the virus. A University of Massachusetts student in Boston is now in quarantine at his home after he recently visited Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak. But the mayor of Boston says there is no need to panic.
There is no fear right now of coronavirus as far as spreading to the city of Boston or to my knowledge, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
The New York Times reports that many of the leading infectious disease experts say the coronavirus could possibly become a worldwide pandemic. Well, after years of bitter fighting between political parties, Britain has finally left the European Union. But what lies ahead, and will another nation leave? Dale Hurd reports from London.
Britain's 47-year relationship with the European Union officially ended at 11 p.m. Friday night to shouts of jubilation by Brexit supporters. The party is over and Britain is out of the European Union. And now Brussels will be watching nervously to see if another European nation will follow Britain out the door. Italy, Poland, Denmark, and Finland are all said to be unhappy with the European Union. But are they unhappy enough to leave? And Britain still has an 11-month transition period until 2021, before its last ties to the EU are cut. Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage says he likes the way Boris Johnson is handling it so far.
I mean, he's saying we won't have any jurisdiction from the European Court of Justice. Good. We're aiming for a Canada-style trade deal, which means the rest of our economy won't be bound by EU rules. Good. No regulatory alignment. Good. In fact, it's everything I've ever wanted.
But there is a sense here that Britain has just stepped into the unknown, and those who opposed Brexit fear rough times ahead.
Depressed, downbeaten.
But Brexit supporters believe that for their great nation, the future just got brighter.
Things are going to be tough in the beginning, but I think we're going to make it. It may take a year, may take a couple of years, but you know what? It smells like freedom.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Well, in Australia, fires continued to burn across the country on Sunday as dozens of homes were destroyed in New South Wales. More than 60 fires are still burning across the territory. Officials say extreme heat and dry conditions have made fighting the fire extra challenging in recent days. Helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft are water-bombing the blazes and dropping fire retardant in an attempt to stop blazes from spreading. Australia's fires have burned more than 15 million acres this season, killing 25 people and destroying thousands of homes. Well, coming up, how one Christian college is promoting diversity and how it's working to highlight it across campus. And before we go to break, here's a look at what is trending on CBNNews.com.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
At their annual meeting last week, Christian college presidents focused on issues ranging from sexual assault to diversity. Nyack College is a Christian liberal arts college in New York City that is known as one of the most racially diverse Christian colleges. I spoke with President Michael Scales about how Nyack is doing it. Nyack is known for having one of the most diverse student populations in the country. Tell us a little bit about how diverse the school is.
Nyack College and Alliance Theological Seminary, where I serve as president of both institutions, although they're all part of Nyack College. The institution is about 20, the student body is about 25% European American or white. It's about 32% Latino, Hispanic, about 30% African American Black, and 10 to 15% Asian. Our faculty is also very diverse, with only 46% are European American white, with the other 56 and 44, 56% are non-white. So we're diverse almost in every area.
Those numbers are really excellent in comparison to a lot of other higher ed institutions. What have you done to promote diversity on campus?
Well, the first obviously important thing is to make sure you hire faculty who represent where you want to go. So we had to make some rules about anytime we looked at an applicant, there had to be at least anyone who brought an application to us for a job had to have at least in their three finalists, someone of a different ethnicity. We also engaged the churches in a very intense way, knowing and realize that there's a dynamic Christian community in New York City, and as we engaged them, we found a lot of wonderful professors. And in fact, because we are diverse, some people would say, I've had people say, oh, in your urge to become diverse, you've watered down your academics. And so we made it an intentional decision that right now we're about 90% of all of our faculty have their PhDs or terminal degrees. We have many specialized accreditations as well, because we wanted to make sure that we were academically excellent as well as being diverse.
And what have you seen as far as the benefits of having such a diverse student body and diverse faculty?
That has been the shocker. So I grew up in Gadsden, Alabama during the Civil Rights period. And so for me to get to serve this great institution, it's either a cosmic joke or it's the providence of God. And obviously I believe it's the providence of God. Our students, we learn much more from our differences than we do our sameness. So that's the part of the selfish portion of this whole idea of diversity. We learn from each other. And when we're alike, we learn less. So learning never stops. Even when you step outside the classroom, you're still learning. Also, our students engage in ways that we all come with our own narratives, our own backgrounds. And so learning how to empathize and put our feet in someone else's shoes and understand their struggle, their ancestral struggle, if you will, really makes a difference in how we learn and respond to the world. I would also say that when we all of us Christians here, when we pass away, we're going to be living with every tongue, every tribe, and every nation. We should learn how to do that now, not then. So it's a compelling reason. At the end of it all, the reason why, a good sermon always has a why and a how. Our why is the banner over us is love. And if we love each other and we want people to know that we are His disciples, we must love each other. And so it's been a great learning experience. It's also given us opportunity that most don't have, because we get to go into communities that many don't even see.
For other colleges and universities that are still trying to figure out diversity and really how to pull more students in from a variety of backgrounds, what would you encourage them to do?
Again, I would say the first thing is to realize that access has always been one of the great issues in American higher education. And so make the decision that you're going to be accessible. One of the hard secrets and truths is that your family's income almost as well predicts your chance of graduating from college as anything else. And so we have to have access, and colleges have to recognize that sometimes we may have to change our admission standards, adjust them some for those who may not have had the motivation at home. Secondly, you have to hire. You have to find the people to hire, that these people that are coming from such different backgrounds and communities will feel welcome and safe in the community that they're going to come, learn, and live.
All right, Dr. Scales with Knack College, thank you for your insights and time.
It's been my pleasure, my great privilege.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
A worship song of a different kind is getting attention online. Mark Martin has the story with Faithwire.com's Dan Andros.
Is it a praise song when it's all about politics? That's the question being talked about with the song Hymn for the 81% by Daniel Dietrich of South Bend, Indiana. Faithwire's Dan Andros is following this story. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Tell us about this song.
Yeah, well, this worship pastor, Daniel Dietrich, he wrote the song. It's called Hymn for the 81%. And he wrote the song in response to the 81% as a reference to the number of, quote, white evangelicals, Protestants that voted for Donald Trump in the 2016 election. And so, you know, many of the worship songs lyrics turn the affection away from God, and they really seem to aim right at people who voted for Trump because he doesn't see Trump's characteristics as quote unquote Christian.
So what are people saying about this? What's the reaction? Any backlash?
Well, I mean, he's getting a ton of views on YouTube. It's been out for about a week, and I think it's around 500,000 views. So it's getting some traction on YouTube. And from what I could see in the reaction, people who don't like Trump seem to like this song. You know, they're rallying behind that just because they don't, you know, seem to have an affection for the current president of the United States. But it seems to be those who would rather their worship songs just talk about God and praise God for his goodness. Those people don't seem to be finding much edification in this song at all.
Has Dietrich responded to any of that criticism?
I haven't seen him respond like directly since, but in the comments, he talked about at the release of the song, he seemed to be expecting that this was going to receive, you know, be controversial because of the nature of it and because he knew, you know, he was essentially targeting someone. So I think he was prepared for and knew that there would be people that would not be thrilled about the song, and he's, you know, he seems to be okay with that.
Regardless of his political views, why should we be concerned about this song when it comes to worship, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at all the classic hymns that we sing, Amazing Grace and How Great Thou Art, all those songs, they put God at the center of it, and we talk about God's greatness and his goodness. And those are things that are worthy about singing about and worshiping for. And so I think the danger with a song like this, and especially calling it a worship song, it would be fine to just write a song about this if that's how you're feeling. But to call it a worship song, especially a hymn, and it puts us at the center. And I think that's a dangerous recipe for any Christian when we think we're the center of the universe and that we have the answer and that we need to be pointing out at everybody else and pointing fingers. To me, that just doesn't seem, like the essence of a true worship song, which should be honoring God above all else.
So tell us what's coming up tonight on Faith versus Culture.
Yeah, well, tonight we're going to be talking about Western church culture and sort of this need for being entertaining and seeking relevance above all else, and putting a premium on that. And so we're going to look at the effects that's having. We're also going to talk about Kobe Bryant's tragic death and the death of everybody on that helicopter, his daughter, some of her friends as well, and talk about the conversations we should be having as Christians in the wake of this tragedy.
All right, Dan Andros of Faithwire.com. Thanks, Dan, for bringing us the story.
All right, thanks for having me.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Pop singer Demi Lovato's comeback from a near-fatal drug overdose 2 years ago continues. Lovato blew the crowd away during the Super Bowl last night with her rendition of the national anthem. Her powerful performance set the tone for the game as the Kansas City Chiefs made an incredible comeback, winning the game 31-20. And that is it for Newswatch. Thanks for joining us.